and welcome to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition, where we aim to maximize your understanding and minimize your need for memorization. Each episode will recap content, skills, and test-taking tips to help you succeed in May. I'm your host, Melanie Kingett, and your recap starts now. Hi, and welcome to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition. Today's episode will recap taxonomy and the organization of living things. Let's zoom out. We're in Unit 2 and 7 and 8. There's too many topics to count. Our big idea is evolution. Dull King Phillip came over for grape soda. Definitely keep pots clean or families get sick. Don't kids prefer cheese over fancy green salads?
Explain to me what's going on.
Whatever tomato's your tomato, these acronyms are designed to remind you of the classification hierarchy of all living things. From broadest to most specific: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Let's zoom in. So you won't actually find the term taxonomy in the AP Biology Course Exam Description, or CED. Taxonomy is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms into, you guessed it, taxons, or groups. But you've actually been seeing and working with organisms of these taxa throughout the curriculum. In Unit 7, the emphasis will be on phylogeny, the evolutionary relationships between organisms. These two areas of study have a lot of overlap and a key feature in common. Just as with all areas of science, the more data we have, the more we have to be open to restructuring our way of thinking. Remember when we kicked out Pluto from the planetary party? More data, new decisions. #science. Imagine what it was like for early scientists to classify a duck.
Hello, what is it?
It walks, swims, and flies. With no knowledge of the microscopic world or cellular structure, they had to rely upon macroscopic observable phenotypes.
I see what you mean.
And at times, behaviors. Greek philosopher and scientist Aristotle thought so anyways, living in the mid-300s BC. He thought that organisms ranged from the most simple to most complex.
Yes, that's what I thought.
And grouped them all into two types: plants and animals. Carolus Linnaeus came around in the 1700s, adding a group called minerals, a bit off the mark. But he did leave us with the binomial nomenclature, genus-species naming system, which we still use in part today. In 1674, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the father of microscopy, sent the Royal Society of London a report on his first observations of microscopic single-celled organisms. And just like that, the worldview expanded. The discovery of microscopic life threw a wrench into the current classification system, causing a shift to classify unicellular organisms separately from multicellular. It wasn't until the mid-1900s that the classification system started to distinguish between cell types within groupings, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Yada, yada, yada. Here's what we have today. There are 3 accepted domains of life. Domains bacteria and archaea both contain unicellular prokaryotes that reproduce asexually. Their DNA is mostly organized into circular chromosomes, with some plasmids, and they have smaller 70S ribosomes. Bacteria, sometimes called eubacteria, remember the prefix EU means true, have cell walls made of the polysaccharide peptidoglycan, whereas archaea do not. Archaea are often called extremophiles, as you will find them in environments with similar conditions to early Earth, like hot springs, salt flats, and geysers.
Hi there, producer Brad here. You may be saying, what the heck is going on here? To that I'd say, this is a recording and I can't hear you. Now I'm not usually given the chance to speak on the podcast because I'm not a teacher, in the literal or figurative sense. I was at one point a student and a poor one. Therefore, I consider myself a bit of a connoisseur de tutor, which is Latin for tutor expert. So I know quality tautology when I see it, and the Absolute Recap virtual tutoring program is top-notch. AP classes are challenging, and sometimes you may need extra help. If you are looking for more in-depth, personalized support, sign up for virtual tutoring with your favorite podcasting teacher. Each 60-minute session is held through Zoom and is structured to meet your specific needs. So if you have a big test coming up, just can't master those multiple choice questions, or need help improving your writing skills, we've got you covered. Our tutors provide opportunities for you to practice content and skills with graded feedback. Visit our website to reserve a session with a tutor for your specific subject and time zone. Now back to the recap.
Domain eukarya contain unicellular and multicellular eukaryotes. Their DNA is organized into linear chromosomes with histones inside of a nucleus. They rarely have plasmids and have larger ADS ribosomes. A defining characteristic of this domain are membrane-bound organelles, like the endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi body. There are 4 kingdoms. The animal kingdom contains multicellular heterotrophic organisms with no cell walls. They gotta move around after all. The plant kingdom are multicellular autotrophs, with cell walls made of cellulose and polysaccharides. The fungi kingdom contains unicellular and multicellular heterotrophs that obtain nutrients through absorption and have cell walls made of chitin. And lastly, the protists, our kingdom of misfit organisms. Unicellular and at times colonial eukaryotes. This group contains cells that may have animal, plant, or fungal characteristics. Consider the euglena, a microscopic pond organism that moves around like an animal and photosynthesizes like a plant. If Aristotle struggled classifying a duck,
Just what is this?
you would have no idea what to do with a euglena. Historically, the number of accepted classification kingdoms has grown from 2 to 6.
That's 6.
However, recent phylogenetic research doesn't support most of the traditional systems. And what about viruses? They aren't living things, not made of cells, and don't reproduce independently. Yet, they are classified in their own evolutionary way. After all, they have genes and do change over time. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, the more data we have, the more we have to be open to restructuring our way of thinking. Perhaps our definition of life will change in the near future, inviting viruses to the party. Time for unit connections. This information will connect to Unit 4 with cell communication, like with quorum sensing and neurotransmitters. Unit 6 with biotechnology and plasmids, Unit 7 with population variations and phylogeny, and Unit 8 with energy flow ecosystems. All right, what about the exam? You may be asked to predict evolutionary relationship based on shared characteristics or lab results. Additionally, correlating autotrophic characteristics and chemosynthetic pathways to energy flow. Be sure to check out some diagrams. To recap, King Phillip wasn't always so dull, but as microscopic life was discovered, the manner of classifying and sorting organisms needed updating. Taxonomy is the science of naming and classifying organisms, while phylogeny groups them based on evolutionary relationships. Primary differences between domains and kingdoms are cell type, DNA organization, organelles, energy acquisition, and cell wall composition. Coming up next on the Absolute Recap Biology Edition, the endomembrane system. Today's question of the day is about amoebas. Amoebas use pseudopods for motility and ingestion. What cellular structure forms the temporary pseudopods? For the answer to the question of the day, please follow us on Instagram at TheApsoluteRecap. That's the APsolute recap. Check out our website, TheApsoluteRecap.com, for episode schedules, study guides, virtual tutoring, and to sign up for our virtual classroom. The Absolute Recap is produced by Brad Kingett with music by Zach Caruso. Today's episode was written by me, Melanie Kingett. Thanks for subscribing, and don't forget to rate and review wherever you get podcasts. Time's up, pencils down. Thank you for listening to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition. AP is a registered trademark of the College Board. Copyright 2020, Absolute Recap LLC, all rights reserved.